Before you even begin this journey, I want you to pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and imagine this. Somewhere, centuries ago, in a quiet mountain temple, a Zen monk sits in stillness. The wind brushes through the pines, carrying the faint scent of incense, and in that silence, something remarkable is happening. Not a battle, not a grand event, but a deep, quiet healing of the mind. That is the world we're stepping into today. In our modern age, the mind is pulled in 1,000 directions. Notifications ping, deadlines loom, and our thoughts rarely find the space to breathe. Yet, ancient Zen wisdom holds that the mind can be both the source of suffering and the source of profound healing. You've probably heard the saying that the body follows the mind, but in Zen, it goes deeper. Your mind, when trained and cultivated, becomes a tool for repairing emotional wounds, calming the nervous system, and even improving physical health. The fascinating thing is that these techniques have existed for over 1,000 years, passed down through silent practice, master to student, temple to temple. They were never meant for the privileged few. They were designed for everyday life. Farmers, artisans, even warriors in feudal Japan practiced forms of Zen self-healing because they understood a truth we often forget. When the mind is at peace, life itself transforms. Before I share the first of these 8 techniques, let me tell you this. Commit yourself to listening not just with your ears, but with your full attention. These are not quick fixes. They are ancient tools, and like any tool, they require use to bring transformation. So stay with me, take notes if you wish, and most importantly, promise yourself that by the end of this video, you will pick at least one of these techniques and make it part of your daily life. The first technique is the practice of mindful breathing, but not in the casual way people think of it today. In Zen, the breath is not simply a relaxation trick. It is a gateway. Monks would spend years perfecting a single way of breathing, aligning it with the natural rhythms of the body and the seasons. The practice is called susokuken, counting the breath. You inhale gently, counting 1, then exhale, counting 2, and you continue until 10 before starting over. The magic is not in the counting itself, but in the way your mind is drawn back, again and again, to the present. At first, the mind rebels. Thoughts will flood in, memories, worries, random fragments. But the more you return to the breath, the more the storm of the mind quiets. In this stillness, the body enters a state of repair. Stress hormones lower, muscles unclench, and the immune system functions more efficiently. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Zen practitioners knew intuitively. The breath can rewire the nervous system. The second technique is Zazen sitting, meditation. Now don't imagine this as simply sitting cross-legged with your eyes closed. True Zazen is the art of sitting as if you are the mountain itself, unmoving, aware of everything, yet reacting to nothing. It's a powerful practice for self-healing because it teaches you to witness your thoughts without being pulled into them. Imagine the relief of feeling a painful memory arise, but instead of reliving it, you simply let it pass, like a cloud drifting across a blue sky. This is not avoidance, it's freedom. I'll tell you a story here. There was a Zen master named Hakuin Eikaku who suffered from severe physical illness and anxiety in his early life. Through Zazen, he not only recovered but developed a teaching style that emphasized mind-body unity. He believed that the mind, when trained to rest in awareness, naturally guides the body toward balance. That's the kind of healing we're talking about, not the absence of pain, but the presence of harmony. Before we move on, let me ask you, how many times today have you stopped to truly notice your mind? Not your to-do list, not your phone screen, but your actual mind. If your answer is not once, then here's your first call to action. Today, before the day ends, give yourself 10 minutes for either mindful breathing or Zazen. Even if it feels awkward, even if your thoughts won't settle, begin. That is the first step toward self-healing. The third technique is something most people overlook: Kinhin, or walking meditation. You see, Zen is not only about sitting still. Life itself is movement, and Zen teaches you to bring awareness into every step. Monks would walk slowly, heel touching the ground first, then rolling the foot forward, synchronizing the steps with their breathing. Why? Because when the mind moves with the body, something extraordinary happens. You dissolve the boundary between action and awareness. Kinhin is especially powerful for those who struggle with traditional meditation. You don't have to force yourself into silence. You let silence walk with you. And for healing, this matters because your body begins to associate movement with calm rather than stress. Imagine walking into work without that familiar tension in your shoulders, or strolling through a crowded market without feeling overwhelmed. This is not wishful thinking, it's the trained mind at work. And this brings me to a deeper point. Each of these techniques is not separate. They are like rivers flowing into the same ocean. The breath supports the sitting supports the walking deepens the breath. Over time, they create a mental environment in which self-healing is not something you do, but something that happens naturally. Like flowers blooming in spring. In the stillness of a Zen temple, there is a sound you might not expect to hear: water dripping slowly into a stone basin. This sound is not accidental. It is part of the fourth technique, one that embodies the essence of presence. Shikantaza, often translated as just sitting. Unlike Zazen, which may use breath awareness as an anchor, Shikantaza invites you to drop every method, every anchor, and simply be fully present in this very moment, without grasping at any thought or sensation. At first, this seems impossible. Your mind will desperately look for something to hold on to, like a swimmer in open water searching for a floating log. But in Shikantaza, the practice is to stop swimming entirely and simply let yourself float. There's nothing to fix, nothing to solve, no goal to reach. This radical acceptance creates a deep mental reset, allowing wounds, both emotional and physical, to begin closing without the interference of mental resistance. I once heard the story of a Zen nun who practiced Shikantaza daily for over 50 years. In her youth, she had endured intense grief, losing both parents to illness. She confessed that, in the early years, sitting in silence felt unbearable. But over time, her grief transformed, not because she forgot, but because she learned to let her loss be part of her, without letting it control her. That is the heart of self-healing, not erasing the pain, but integrating it into a larger, more compassionate awareness. The fifth technique takes us into the realm of sound chanting sutras. In Zen, chanting is not about religious belief, but about vibration. The human voice, when sustained in deep, resonant tones, has the power to shift our state of consciousness. Ancient monks understood that the body is not just flesh and bone, it is vibration. Every cell resonates, and sound can bring that resonance into harmony. When you chant, you don't simply repeat words. You feel them moving through your entire body. The long exhalations required for chanting also trigger the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety and rest. Many modern practitioners find that daily chanting relieves anxiety, sharpens focus, and improves sleep. The healing here is subtle but powerful. You are using your own voice to retune your mind and body. Halfway through these 8 techniques, it's important to pause and remind you, you don't have to master them all at once. In fact, Zen warns against trying to collect practices like trophies. Instead, choose one that resonates with you now and give it your full attention. As you progress, others will naturally unfold into your life. The 6th technique is perhaps one of the most physically grounding: tea ceremony meditation. Known as Shanju in Japan, this practice is far more than making tea. Every gesture, from folding the cloth to pouring the water, is deliberate and mindful. The tea ceremony teaches the principle of Ichigo Ichi, one time, one meeting, reminding us that this moment will never come again. Imagine this. You boil water slowly, feeling the steam rise against your skin. You whisk the powdered tea until it forms a smooth froth. You place the cup before you with two hands, as if presenting a precious gift. You take a slow sip, tasting not just the tea but the stillness around you. This is self-healing through ritual, transforming an ordinary act into a sacred one, calming the mind and reminding it of the beauty and simplicity. At this point, I want to place another call to action before you. Tonight or tomorrow morning, take one everyday activity, drinking tea, washing your hands, even brushing your teeth, and perform it as if it were the most important thing you could do in that moment. Move slowly, breathe with awareness, and allow no other thought to intrude. Experience what happens when you truly give yourself to a single act. The seventh technique is Koan contemplation. A koan is a paradoxical question or statement given by a Zen teacher to a student, not to be answered logically, but to shatter the mind's habitual patterns. You've probably heard examples like, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" Or, "Who were you before your parents were born?" At first, these seem like riddles, but they are designed to bypass the thinking mind and lead you into direct experience. Koans are not just intellectual puzzles, they are tools of self-healing. When you wrestle with a koan, your mind eventually exhausts itself trying to figure it out. In that exhaustion, you drop into a deeper state of clarity, free from overthinking and mental noise. This mental spaciousness can dissolve anxiety and give rise to profound insights that reorganize your inner world. Finally, we arrive at the eighth technique, nature immersion. In Zen, nature is not separate from practice, it is the practice. Monks often meditate by rivers, under trees, or in gardens designed to reflect the simplicity of the natural world. They believe that by aligning yourself with the rhythms of nature, you align with the deeper rhythm of life itself. Studies now show that spending even 20 minutes in nature lowers cortisol levels and reduces symptoms of depression. But Zen takes it further. It asks you to merge with nature, to breathe with it, to feel its pulse as your own. This dissolves the illusion of separation, which is often the root of mental suffering. And here is where all 8 techniques weave together. Each one, whether sitting, walking, chanting, performing a tea ceremony, contemplating a koan, or immersing in nature, returns you to the same place, the present moment, where healing is always possible. Long before the word Zen ever appeared. In Japan, its seeds were planted far away in India, within the fertile soil of early Buddhist meditation. Around the 5th or 6th century, these teachings traveled along the Silk Road, carried by monks who understood that the mind was the most profound instrument of transformation. One of the most influential of these was Bodhidharma, a semi-legendary monk credited with bringing Chan Buddhism from China to Japan. His journey was not merely geographical, it was the passage of an idea that enlightenment and healing were not gifts granted by the outside world, but states cultivated from within. Zen, which emerged from Chinese Chan Buddhism, absorbed Taoist influences that emphasized living in harmony with the flow of nature. This blending gave Zen its unique flavor, direct, practical, and often startlingly simple in expression. While other spiritual traditions might rely on elaborate rituals or dogma, Zen often pointed to the ordinary as the gateway to the extraordinary. The masters taught that washing a bowl, chopping wood, or sweeping the floor could be as profound as any formal meditation, if done with full awareness. It is here that the 8 self-healing techniques we explored earlier began to crystallize, not as mystical secrets, but as everyday practices. In the mountains and temples of China and later Japan, monks refined these methods not to escape life, but to engage with it more deeply. They understood something crucial. When the mind learns to rest in the present, the body's natural intelligence awakens. Consider the practice of mindful breathing we discussed earlier. Its roots go back to anapanasati, a meditation on the breath taught by the Buddha himself. But in Zen, It was adapted into forms like Susakukan, linking each breath to a deep awareness of impermanence. Why? Because each breath is unique. The one you just took will never return. Recognizing this makes you appreciate the preciousness of every moment, which is itself a form of healing. Zazen too found its historical champions. One of the most famous was Dogen Zenji, the founder of the Stow school of Zen in Japan. Dogen's approach to sitting meditation was uncompromising. He taught that Zazen is not a means to an end, it is the expression of enlightenment itself. He urged practitioners not to sit in order to get something, but to sit because, in that moment, they are embodying their truest nature. This attitude, radical in its simplicity, is deeply restorative because it removes the constant pressure of self-improvement and replaces it with self-acceptance. Walking meditation, or kinhin, was historically a practical necessity. Temples were often vast, and monks had to move between buildings during long retreats. But over time, kinhin became a formal practice in itself, a way to bring meditative presence into movement. Ancient Zen gardens, with their carefully raked gravel and winding paths, were not merely for beauty, they were designed to guide these meditative walks, allowing the mind to settle into the rhythm of the body's steps. The tea ceremony, now an iconic symbol of Japanese culture, evolved in the 5th, 10th, and 16th centuries under the influence of Zen aesthetics. Masters like Sen no Rikyu infused Shen-nu with wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and transience. In this way, the simple act of making tea became a mirror for life, delicate, fleeting, and yet deeply satisfying when experienced with full presence. Chanting sutras had its own journey. In Zen monasteries, chanting was not only devotional, but also functional. It unified the voices and breathing of the community, creating a shared rhythm that dissolved the sense of separation among practitioners. The healing here was as much social as it was personal, reminding individuals that they were part of a larger whole. Koans, those enigmatic puzzles, trace back to Tang Dynasty China, where masters used them to disrupt habitual thinking. The goal was never to solve the koan in a logical sense, but to awaken an insight that cannot be put into words. In a way, koans are like acupuncture needles for the mind. They touch a point of tension and release it, often in ways the practitioner could never anticipate. Nature immersion was perhaps the most universal of all these practices, as many Zen temples were deliberately located in remote, natural settings. Mountains, rivers, and forests were not backdrops but living teachers. Monks learned from the way snow falls silently, from the resilience of bamboo, from the steady patience of stones. Nature was, and remains, a direct reminder that healing follows its own seasons, no faster, no slower than it needs to. In our modern lives, cut off from this history, it's easy to think of Zen as something abstract or foreign. But these techniques are living traditions. They've survived wars, political changes, and centuries of human distraction because they work. They are as applicable to a 21st century office worker as they were to a 14th century monk. Before we move forward, here's your next invitation. Think of one place in your daily environment, maybe your kitchen table, a park bench, or even a balcony where you can begin to practice one of these techniques consistently. Make it your small temple. Let it be the place where you breathe, sit, walk, or sip tea with awareness. Over time, you'll notice how that space seems to hold a different quality, a quietness that calls you back. The question that naturally arises is, how do we bring these ancient temple-born techniques into the chaos of modern life? It's one thing to imagine monks in quiet mountain sanctuaries, but it's another to picture yourself practicing mindful breathing in the middle of a noisy city street or a stressful workplace. The good news is Zen was never meant to be locked away in monasteries. Its true power lies in its portability. The first step in adapting Zen self-healing for today's world is to understand that Time is not the main barrier, attention is. Even if you can't set aside an hour for Zazen each morning, you can reclaim fragments of awareness scattered throughout your day. 5 mindful breaths while waiting for your computer to boot. A slow, deliberate walk from your desk to the kitchen. These small moments, practiced consistently, weave the same mental patterns that centuries-old monastic life was designed to cultivate. Consider the workplace, a setting often dominated by deadlines and constant mental chatter. If you bring Susakuken, the counting breath, into your day, you can transform even brief breaks into restorative rituals. Set a reminder on your phone for 3 minutes, twice a day, to simply breathe and count. This small practice recalibrates your nervous system, reduces impulsive reactions, and brings a quiet clarity that makes you more effective, not less. The same applies at home. Before you rush into dinner preparation, try the tea ceremony approach. You don't need ceremonial bowls or a tatami mat. You only need the intention to treat the act of making tea, coffee, or even a simple glass of water as a sacred process. Notice the sound of boiling water, the rising steam, the way light reflects off the cup. These sensory details anchor you in the moment, and the mind responds with relief. Finally, it can stop running. Now let's talk about stress, which for many is the main reason they seek self-healing. Stress is not just a mental state. It's a physiological cascade: elevated cortisol, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing. Zen techniques are designed to interrupt this cascade at multiple points. Mindful breathing works on the respiratory and nervous systems. Walking meditation rebalances muscular tension. Shikantaza addresses the mental root by teaching you to let go of the need to control every thought. Imagine coming home after a hard day. Instead of collapsing on the couch and drowning in social media, you step outside for 10 minutes of walking. Meditation. You match your steps to your breath. You notice the sensation of your feet touching the ground. You let the day's worries dissolve into the rhythm of movement. By the time you return, your mind is no longer replaying conflicts from work. You've given it a way to release them. Another key adaptation for modern life is integrating nature immersion into urban spaces. You may not live near forests or rivers, but you can still find nature in a single tree on your street, a potted plant by your window, or even the changing colors of the sky. When you look closely, nature is everywhere. The trick is to treat these encounters as intentional practices, not background scenery. Pause to notice the texture of a leaf, the way rain patterns form on a sidewalk, the sound of birds between traffic noise. In that moment, your mind is in harmony with something larger than itself, and that is healing. For those who struggle with overthinking or anxiety, Koan contemplation can be surprisingly effective in a modern setting. You don't need a formal Zen teacher to start. Choose a simple, paradoxical question and let it sit in your mind throughout the day. For example, what is my original face before I was born? You'll notice your mind trying to solve it logically, but over time, that effort collapses into a stillness that words cannot reach. This stillness is like a reset button for mental turbulence. And here's something crucial. In the modern world, self-healing through the mind is not just personal, it's relational. When you practice these techniques, you inevitably affect those around you. Your calm presence can de-escalate tension in a conversation. Your mindful listening can make others feel truly heard. Your steady breathing can set the pace for an entire meeting without anyone realizing it. In this way, Zen healing becomes contagious in the best possible way. Here's my next call to action for you. Choose one upcoming stressful moment in your life, a meeting, a family conversation, a commute, and commit to entering it with a single Zen practice in mind. Maybe it's counting your breath. Maybe it's walking slowly and mindfully from one room to another before it begins. Notice the difference in how you experience that moment and how others respond to you. Over time, these practices stop being Things you fit into your schedule. They become part of the way you live. You no longer have to remember to breathe deeply, you simply do. You don't have to schedule time for walking meditation, you naturally walk with awareness. The historical Zen masters would smile at this, because it means the practice has done its job. The mind has learned to heal itself, moment by moment. Imagine for a moment that years from now, you look back on this very day. You remember where you were when you first heard about these 8 ancient techniques. Maybe at the time you thought, it was just another interesting idea. But what if instead, this moment became the turning point? What if it was the day you began to live with a mind that could heal itself? Zen has a quiet way of working on you. At first, the changes are subtle. A little less tension in your shoulders. A slightly longer pause before reacting in frustration. An unexpected calm in situations that would have once triggered anxiety. But over months and years, these shifts compound. You begin to notice that your life feels lighter, not because your problems have vanished, but because your relationship to them has transformed. One of the most beautiful things about Zen self-healing is that it doesn't ask you to escape your life or reject the world. Instead, it invites you to enter it more fully, with eyes wide open. Mindful breathing, Zazen, walking meditation, Shikantaza, chanting, the tea ceremony, Koan contemplation, and nature immersion. These are not escapes. They are doorways. Each one leads you back to the same place. This moment, right here, exactly as it is. There's a Zen saying, when walking, walk. When eating, eat. On the surface, it sounds almost absurdly simple. But in reality, this is the essence of self-healing. When you allow yourself to be completely present with what you are doing, you stop scattering your energy across 1,000 unfinished thoughts. Your mind becomes like a still pond, and in that stillness, the body remembers how to repair itself. The world today will try to convince you that healing must come from outside, from products, from quick fixes, from someone else's advice. But Zen reminds us that the greatest healer we will ever meet is the one who watches our thoughts in silence. You already carry this healer within you. The techniques are simply the tools, so wake it up. And yet, these practices are not meant to be hoarded in solitude. When you embody them, you bring a different quality into every space you enter. You become the person who speaks slowly when others rush, who listens when others interrupt, who notices the sky when others are staring at their phones. People may not know what's different about you, but they will feel it, and sometimes they will catch it. Before we close, here's my final call to action for you. Pick one of the 8 techniques and commit to practicing it for the next 30 days. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. Don't measure your progress by how peaceful you feel. Simply show up day after day and let the practice do its quiet work. By the end of those 30 days, look back not to see if life is fixed, but to notice how your relationship to life has shifted. And when you face moments of pain, remember this: in Zen, pain is not the enemy, it's a teacher. The mind can learn to sit with it, breathe with it, and in time, let it pass. Self-healing is not about becoming invincible, it's about becoming deeply, compassionately human. So, as we come to the end of this journey together, I invite you to take a deep breath right now. Feel the air enter, feel it leave. Know that this breath connects you to centuries of seekers who sat in silence, walked in awareness, and trusted that the mind, when returned to its natural stillness, knows how to heal. The wisdom is ancient, but the moment is always now. And the mind you heal today will be the mind that carries you through every tomorrow. Sometimes, even after hearing profound wisdom, we hesitate. We nod along, feel inspired, and yet days later return to the same restless routines. Why? Because the mind resists change, even change that promises peace. Zen teaches us that this resistance is not a flaw, it's simply the mind doing what it has always done. protecting what it knows. To overcome this, you don't need to force yourself into transformation. Instead, you create conditions where change naturally blossoms. Think of it like tending a garden. You cannot pull a flower open with your hands. You can only provide water, sunlight, and good soil. The 8 techniques we've explored are that soil. Practice them, and growth becomes inevitable. Let's revisit mindful breathing for a moment. Many people think it's about controlling the breath, but in Zen, it's more about being breathed. You notice that your body already knows how to inhale and exhale without your interference. The healing comes when you surrender the illusion of control and simply participate in what's already happening. This shift, trusting the body's wisdom, spills over into other areas of life, teaching you to let go of the constant mental micromanagement that exhausts you. Zazen, too, deepens over time. At first, you may sit for 10 minutes and feel only discomfort, tight hips, a restless mind. But with patience, you discover moments where thought falls away, and there's only awareness. These glimpses, however brief, are like clearings in a dense forest. Over time, they connect, and you realize the forest itself is thinned. The same mind that once kept you in knots now feels spacious, light. Walking meditation becomes especially powerful when integrated into daily transitions. Instead of rushing from one activity to the next, you walk as if every step matters, because it does. You feel the floor under your feet, the shifting of weight, the subtle rhythm of breath matching your movement. The beauty of this is that it transforms in between moments, those times we usually waste in distraction, into active healing. Shikantaza teaches the art of doing nothing, which is one of the most radical acts in a productivity-obsessed world. In that nothingness, you realize how much energy you've been spending chasing thoughts and trying to control outcomes. The release you feel is not laziness, it's liberation. You return to life lighter, clearer, and with a deep reservoir of calm. Chanting sutras may seem far from modern life, but even humming or reciting words of kindness can shift your state. The vibration of sound doesn't care whether it's in a temple or your living room, it works anywhere. Try chanting a single word, like peace or calm, letting the sound resonate in your chest. Notice how it alters your breathing and your emotional state. The tea ceremony reminds us that how we do something matters as much as what we do. This practice is a quiet rebellion against the rush of modern life. It says, I will not let this moment be consumed by hurry. I will meet it fully. That mindset, repeated daily, builds an unshakable inner foundation. Koan contemplation in a modern context is fascinating because our world loves answers, and koans refuse to give them. They remind us that not everything must be solved. Some things are meant to be experienced. Holding a koan in your awareness is like holding a lantern in the dark. It doesn't reveal the whole landscape, but it illuminates enough for you to take the next step. Nature immersion, perhaps more than any other technique, shows us we are not separate from life. When you watch a river flow, you are watching the same flow that moves through your own veins. When you sit under a tree, you share the same breath. Its exhale is your inhale. This connection is not poetic metaphor. It's a biological truth. And when you feel it deeply, loneliness and anxiety lose their grip. If there's one truth these techniques all share, it's that healing is not a future event. It's not waiting for you someday when life is easier. It's available now, in this breath, in this step, in this sip of tea, in this moment of stillness. Here's your next challenge. For the next week, choose one daily activity, anything at all, and commit to turning it into a Zen practice. Brush your teeth as if you were performing a sacred ritual. Wash dishes as if each plate were a priceless artifact. Walk to the bus stop as if you were carrying a bowl of water you could not spill. See how your mind changes when every act becomes an opportunity to heal. And remember, self-healing is not the absence of pain, but the presence of peace. You will still have challenges, but you will meet them differently. You will meet them with the mind of someone who has walked the quiet paths of Zen and knows that, no matter the storm, there's always a still point within.